Ladies and gentlemen, recently Van Jones said that Biden is losing black voters because he didn't fulfill his promises and made their lives worse. Well, liberals are now coming after Van Jones for making that statement. But what did he say that was untrue? And who the hell do you liberals think you are? Where we can't give an opinion and you want to come running along and shut it down, y'all can kick rocks for real. So, a CNN political commentator Van Jones said Biden and the Democrats are losing support among black voters, which is very true. They are. They are. So, you liberals trying to stifle somebody's voices, that's not going to change anything. He is losing black voters because they overpromised, under-delivered, and inflation made their lives worse. Again, I see nothing but truth in that. Jones made the comments on CNN Friday, and I think there is a disappointment factor that set in. I think a lot of black voters feel like the black community gave the most during the election. It was a historic election in 2020 and have gotten the least, Van Jones said. And that's true. Again, what part of that is not true, liberals? So, if you look at voting rights, so far nothing. Police reform, so far nothing. And it's not just police reform, it's that qualified immunity that Joe Biden has made very clear will stay in place. And didn't he just recently said he wants to fund the police and give the police even more money? See, this man ain't really with you. So you look at student loan stuff, very little. So what's motivating African American voters left, right, and otherwise? So this is what Van Jones has said. Um, where that somebody was going to come to our rescue. He continued, the day-to-day reality for black folks hasn't improved. In fact, because of inflation and other things have gotten worse, Jones concluded. So if you're starting to see that disappointment factor set in, he went on to point out that conservatives have been able to recast the Republican Party as a multiracial working class party to appeal to some minorities. Well, that ain't gonna work, Republican Party. Y'all can go kick rocks too. He also blamed most of the disapproval for Biden on inflation. This idea, well, look, Trump was there. He's terrible. We're going to replace him and we're going to give you 100% of what you want with 50% of the votes in the Senate. Van Jones continued. The math never made sense. You can pass big bills through the House, but you can't even sometimes get a hearing in the Senate. And so by the time you get to the summertime, hey, I'm hearing all this stuff is supposed to be happening, but it's never getting signed by the president, he explained, which is very true. You know, that George Floyd bill certainly died before it reached Biden, and he certainly didn't do anything about it, but he can sure stroke that pen to get things done for everybody else. When you overpromise so much in the beginning of the year and you're under delivering at the end of the year, and don't forget, build back better, you suddenly end up with a disappointment factor plus inflation, Jones concluded. On some social media, they were furious with Van Jones for his criticism of the Democrats. Well, I agree. I agree with and I normally don't always agree with Van Jones, but on this one, I agree with him for the most part. Van Jones is an effing moron. Read one very popular reaction. Well, that person that said that, why is it that people in our community can't express disappointment about Joe Biden? What the hell is up with that? Van Jones is wrong. So this is what the media has underreported Joe Biden's accomplishments because they have PTSD. Getting a handle on your business, F's and MSM, and another critic. Well, no, liberals, you are the ones that are out of touch, and you are not going to stifle our voices when we say we're not satisfied with Joe Biden. Y'all need to find something else to do because whether you like it or not, we're going to say what we need to say. Screw you and screw your midterms. Okay, so I don't know what the F Van Jones jigging and jiving ass is even talking about. Read another critical tweet. How the F would he know what life is like for us blacks who ain't never played pet Negro for Trump or billionaire Bezos? Well, you sound like an out of touch Negro. Okay. Uh-uh. You know, no, I think that we need to do a much better job in putting these liberals in their place. We don't care if you some old black coon and liberal. Who cares? So Van Jones didn't say anything wrong here. The Democrats said what they needed to say to get the votes they needed to win and refused to fight for any of the things that they promised. The strategy of the Democrats appeared to be, um, it's failing. It's failing. Yeah, that's a strategy they have used for a long time. Tell the black voters what they want to hear, get them out there to vote, and then once they are in place and in office, they don't know you anymore until the next election cycle. And that's the way the Democratic Party have been playing it all this time. And it's imploding on them now. See, you overused your hand. So NBC News found similar apathy among black voters in rural towns who said it didn't appear to matter who was in the White House, Democrats or Republicans. That is true. All right, I'm going to play this audio. And this is what Van Jones recently said on CNN.
Van Jones. Hey, Dan, nice to see you. Good to see you as well. I think Harry used like what 4 or 5 bigs in terms of how he was trying to describe the drop in approval among black voters. What do you see happening here? Well, I think that there's a disappointment factor that set in. I think a lot of black voters feel like the black community gave the most during the election, as a historic election 2020, and have gotten the least. If you look at voting rights, so far, nothing. Police reform, so far, nothing. You look at some of the student loan stuff, very little. So what was motivating African American voters, left, right, and otherwise, were that somebody was going to come to our rescue. The day-to-day reality for black folks hasn't improved. In fact, because of inflation and other things, gotten worse. And so you're starting to see that disappointment factor set in. Do you think it will change the voting patterns? Well, listen, I think that it may well. Also, don't forget, you have had a concerted effort on the part of conservatives to recast the Republican Party as a party of the multiracial working class. Republicans have moved right on cultural issues. We react to that. They move left on some economic issues. You see, Republicans more open to tariffs, more open to protecting American workers, that kind of stuff. And so I think we underreact as Democrats to the left move of on economics from Republicans, sometimes overreact to their move to the right on culture, and are missing a big chunk of folks who are moving away from us in the black community. The president's approval rating is down overall, not just among black voters here. Sure. What do you think is going on? Inflation. I mean, listen, that's at the end of the day, ordinary folks, they're looking at their bills, and they're looking at gas prices when they're up. Not Republicans, presidents suffer. So that part of it is baked into the cake. But I think that when you have a community that feels that it rescued the Democratic Party, maybe rescued American democracy, and can't get police reform done after George Floyd, that there's something wrong, and that disappointment factor starting to show up. Can the
Okay.
Democrats overpromise? Overpromise, underdelivered so far. How so? Well, again, this idea, well, Trump was here, he's terrible, we're going to replace him, and we're going to give you 100% of what you want with 50% of the votes in the Senate. The math never made sense. So you could pass these big bills through the House, but you can even sometimes get a hearing in the Senate. And so you begin by the time you get to summertime, it's like, hey, I'm hearing all this good stuff supposed to be happening, but it's never getting signed by the president. And so when you overpromise so much in the beginning of the year and you're underdelivering at the end of the year, and don't forget Build Back Better, et cetera, you suddenly wind up with a disappointment factor plus inflation. Any way you could fix that? I just think that there's some things that could get done. I think you could do something narrow on voting. You could probably still do something narrow on police reform or at least executive orders. You got to signal to people that the people that brought you to the dance, young people and black folks, are going to get something out of the government, or people are not going to want to vote.
That's the truth. So, what part of that upsets the liberals? Instead of being mad at Van Jones, you need to get the real things done. Where is our reparations? The Democrats is going along an awful lot with all this money leaving out of the country. You know what our community want. They want you to do something about qualified immunity. They want their reparations. You know what we want. But you keep trying to give us things that you want us to have, but we don't want your junk. That's what you don't get. We told you what we want. And Joe Biden is losing out on voters. And that's his problem. When the midterms come, I do hope you suffer the consequences. But see, these liberals are so nasty and so evil. They'll spend their time trying to get back at us if they lose, instead of fixing the problems that need to be fixed. None of you are of any use as far as I'm concerned. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace.